1.
My name is Nick. I'm a full-time trader and entrepreneur. We put out tons of stuff for free for traders.
These are real trades. This is real money. I'm putting my money on the line.
This is going to be a live trading video here, locking in over $1,000 on this trade.
Wow, I'd love to get in on this.
Technical insights that really look good to me.
Here we go. We're live.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another live stream. Shout out to everybody who is already here in the chat with me. I'll pop up some of the messages. Good to see you guys. Insan, Donnie, Augustine, Dade, Murari. If I say your name wrong, I apologize. Yusuf, Andrew. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for being here. Happy, what is today? Today is Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you. I'm glad that you're here with me, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about markets with you because we got some stuff to talk about for sure. So we do have some news today. Before I jump into all the charts and the analysis, let's just look at Forex Factory really quick. So I want to show you guys this. For those of you guys who are watching the CAD pairs today, we do have the Bank of Canada rate statement, which is basically just the central bank meeting where they discuss monetary policy and what they're looking for. Right now, the expectation is sort of matching some of the other central banks, which is, a little bit hesitant due to the concerns around the Delta variant at this time. So if we get something surprisingly bullish or bearish from the CAD speech there or the Bank of Canada rate statement, that should be interesting. But for the most part, it is expected to stay unchanged and a little bit cautionary, as we've seen from the Fed, the RBA, right? The Australian central bank. So probably matching that in that regard. So we'll see if it causes any volatility, though. Sometimes some of the biggest moves happen due to big sort of monetary policy statements. So we'll keep an eye on some of the CAD pairs today, as well as, of course, we do have GBP, the pound monetary policy report hearings at, of course, 11 a.m., which is in just 2 hours from now. So 1 hour from now, we do have Bank of Canada, and then 2 hours from now, we do have GBP or the Bank of England, which definitely could be market moving for both pairs or both sets of currency pairs. If you're watching things like GBP USD today, we'll take a look at some of those. Let's actually start with the pound. Actually, before we look at the pound, let me show you guys just the dollar. So the dollar is making a move here to the upside here. The continued push upwards is looking pretty strong for the dollar at this time. We're going to have to see if this continues to play out. We do, of course, have some levels of resistance to mention here. Let's go ahead and draw in some levels of resistance that sort of bears may want to keep an eye on. So we do have this level here. We also just shy of that level. You could even just draw this as one zone, but you do have sort of resistance there as well. So coming into areas of potential resistance there for the sellers. And again, the sellers have sort of shown their strength multiple times here in the last few weeks. So as we come up into these regions, just keep an eye out for them to potentially find some fresh sell interest. Now, again, we had a very steep sell-off there on the dollar off of the backs of two main things. We had dovishness from Jerome Powell, and then we also had poor jobs numbers, which both of them caused the dollar to weaken. And now today, again, we're seeing some strength come back into the USD. If anything, for me, a fundamental bias would tell me most likely to the downside. And from a technical analysis standpoint, we do have some pretty significant areas of interest, at least in my opinion here on the DXY. Now, if I also draw a fib, this even brings more clarity at that 50% level. So if price does pop up a bit more there, maybe some opportunities at the 50% level. At least that's what I personally like there on the DXY. I'll keep an eye on this for possible short interest on the dollar. So with that said, we'll keep this chart lined up for next time. But let's go take a look at some of the individual crosses. So the Euro USD coming down harder than I thought it would. I thought we would find a little bit more demand sooner, but that's all right. That's what happens in trading sometimes. Sometimes you just you're a little early to the train. I still think that there is possible bullishness for the euro. We'll draw in some levels here. If we draw from swing low to the swing high, one area of interest does pop up at the 50% retracement level. which we can draw in here as demand. So watching the Euro USD, of course, you do have price sort of trying the 38.2% retracement as we speak. We'll see if that can hold, if there can be some buyers here, or if price is going to push a little bit further down to that 50% retracement. Perhaps there is some buying interest down in the lows there. I do like Euro USD to the upside. I think that it has potential there should we see more buyers come rushing in. Again, the fundamentals to me on the dollar look fairly weak for now. Until that changes, I am more biased towards the short side when looking at DXY or just the US dollar across many different currencies. We can take a look at pound dollar here like we wanted to talk about early on the stream. We can draw some fibs here as well. So a lot of these dollar crosses are setting up for some interesting positions. Here is your 50% retracement coming in a little bit closer now than the Euro USD. We see the pound dollar retracing pretty steadily today, selling off pretty significantly from last week's highs. Again, if you are bullish on the dollar, then perhaps you're looking for breakouts to the downside. If you are bearish on the dollar and maybe bullish on the pound, keep an eye on that 50% retracement. It does look of general interest to me, especially when we look at the fact that sort of we had this downward trend, right? We broke out to the upside, and now we are just finding we're looking for buyers, basically, right? You see a big breakout like this, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. The question is, can we get that next higher low to sort of confirm that upward trend bias on the GBP USD currency pair? We'll keep an eye on this one for sure. This is definitely one on the top of my list, especially with today's Bank of England potentially going to be market moving, right? So we mentioned that at 11 a.m. US Eastern, we do have GBP news, which is monetary policy report hearings. In case that doesn't mean anything to you, basically what that is it's talking about the monetary policy in England, right? So, of course, a more hawkish than expected is good for the currency. And during these hearings, the Bank of England governor and several MPC members testify on inflation and the economic outlook before Parliament's Treasury Committee. So it's basically just monetary policy discussions and sort of generally how they want to handle things. So any clues as to whether or not there will be tightening or not in the Bank of England's monetary policy, that's what we're going to be looking for there on the GBP news. Of course, same thing with Canada. We'll see if we get anything from Canada. I am pretty bullish on Aussie, NZD, CAD, and GBP due to sort of their risk on nature, as well as a general for me with the CAD and the Aussie, a bullish bias towards those things due to their sort of commodity-based economies. What we know right now is that inflation is a big concern. So if you think about this for a second, if you have inflation, that continues to be a problem, right? And inflation continues to be on the rise. If we have high inflation, what does that mean? It means that the value of currencies is devaluing, right? Or going down, specifically in the US, right? So if you have high inflation in the US, inflation can mean, the dollar goes down, but what would go up relatively speaking? Well, things possibly like gold. A big one right now is gasoline is very expensive, right? In the US, it's reaching some pretty crazy levels. Every time I fill up, I feel like I'm spending more money than ever. Gold, gas, you're talking about things like oil, right? So commodities, things like this, usually what they'll do is in response to the dollar devaluing, they will go up in dollar value due to the fact that, again, the dollar is going down, so everything else goes up relatively speaking. Well, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, they have economies that are exposed to those commodities in a large way for their economy. So, again, that's sort of a general reasoning why I am more bullish than bearish on those specific ones. So again, pound dollar looking interesting here today. Maybe we get a little bit more of a deeper retracement there at the 50%. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. Speaking of some of those commodity currencies, let's go take a look at the Aussie dollar today. So the thing with the Aussie, however, is that they basically had a pretty dovish central bank meeting recently, which sort of put a stunt in the growth here of this strong upward momentum. However, I still remain fairly bullish on the Aussie. I'm not, as bullish as I was before that. Maybe if we get something further from, the central bank in Australia that says maybe a little bit more tightening at some point. Maybe that could be a little bit more convincing. But as we stand, at the very least, we are seeing some form of a recovery. We're seeing steps in the right direction in terms of pandemic lockdowns, et cetera, in Australia. A big deal with Australia is that, if your whole country is shut down, as we know and as we have all seen with everything in the months previous, lockdowns are not good for economy, right? That gets everybody out of work, and it's not so good for growth. So with Australia coming out of that, I still think that there is perhaps some decent rebound plays on the Australian dollar, especially if you think that the dollar is potentially weak. That could be still a reasonable play to the upside there on the Aussie dollar versus the US dollar, right? So pullback plays may be in order. Here's another swing low to swing high on the fibs. 38.2% retracement may come into play, and I do like it lining up with this previous level. You've got some pretty significant levels there of what was support, broke out, found another chance to break out, and now may retest that area. If that does retest, there may be some opportunities on the long side there for the Aussie dollar if you are bullish on it. So that's my opinion. Please remember that this is not financial advice. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your money. I'm just sharing my opinions. And as we go along today, there are quite a few US dollar currency crosses that are looking interesting today. So with that said, we'll continue on here. We'll take a look now at NZD/USD while we're talking about that part of the world. We'll talk about New Zealand dollar as well, which has been quite strong. You can see here we go from swing low to swing high. Yeah, this one's quite far away from its 38%, 38.2% retracement. That might be a little while if it's even going to get there before it gets down to those levels. But volatility can pick up, and it can get there a lot faster than sometimes people would expect. For me, looking at the Kiwi dollar, I do have a bullish bias on it, especially as I am fairly bearish on the dollar at this time. We'll have to keep an eye on this one for sure. If it gets down there, maybe we'll reevaluate. But for now, not really in a zone of interest for me to be buying, just because I think that we saw that really good run up. So for me, there's no buying opportunities up here. I'd like to see it retrace a little bit more, get some of that, get some sellers looped in, as well as, go down deeper to find some bigger, maybe deeper pocket buyers, if you will. So we'll keep an eye on that on the Kiwi dollar, of course. Now let's talk about the USD Cad. So the dollar Cad has been making a retracement. And actually, as it comes up into this level here, I actually think that this level could be reasonably bearish. So we did get a pop here to the upside, which of course, yes, that was strong for the dollar. But again, I think that it's very much going to depend on what we have from the Bank of Canada here in just under an hour. We do have the Bank of Canada having a speech, or not a speech. We're having a central bank meeting, which could be, a market mover for the CAD. So I still think that when we look at the CAD, I think that this trend does look a bit tired here to the upside. We saw sort of this like blowout top, right? We saw this massive run up to the upside met with serious sellers. We did see some follow through, and now we're seeing a bit of a bid here today for the dollar CAD. Again, I can't predict the future, so I don't know what the Bank of Canada has to say. But generally speaking, I am bullish on commodities. We do see oil strong today, which, when you see oil strong, that generally could be a pointer towards strength in the CAD as well. So again, finding resistance here. We'll see if sellers can push this thing lower off of the 1.27 level today. That will be the point of interest for sure going into this big news. As we speak, like I said, this level of resistance is one that I am watching. If we're able to break above that, then yes, of course, we could see further push, maybe even a crazy push back to the top. But for me, I do think that, the dollar CAD looks like it has potentially some bearish interest here to the downside. You sort of had this trend line fall out of favor, and now as we retest it, again, we'll see if sellers can hold this area or if buyers are going to be able to bust through it again to maybe rekindle some of that bullish trend that we were seeing in the last few months. If you scroll out long enough, however, though, you look at the daily chart, this thing is still, we had a lot of strength to the downside during the pandemic recovery. I think it is potentially possible that we could see this continue to sort of fall lower over time. So we'll have to see if maybe we get some push towards that today with the Bank of Canada's meeting. So with that said, Let's take a look now at gold. Of course, another commodity. Commodities are the topic of the day. So gold is pulling back, especially when we had some strength come in on the dollar today. And once again, this one level here at 1830, finding resistance, seeing that sellers are still in control, at least for the time being at 1830. As we pull back again, as I am bullish on commodities, I am looking at the gold market dip as a possible buy. But for me, the thing here with gold is I just don't like the price action too much. It's very, very sideways right now. And I was really kind of looking to see if the gold market could make a breakout to the upside. That would have been way more interesting to me. But of course, I don't get to choose what happens to the market. All I can do is react accordingly. So for me right now, gold is not the most interesting thing, even though we did get a pretty strong dip there on the gold market. You know, it's one of those things we could see. Gold is so volatile. You could see gold right back to the top by tomorrow, and maybe we get the breakout by the end of the week. You know, who knows? But for me, looking at gold, I am paused on my bullish thesis just because we did find some pretty significant resistance. We may have a little bit more room to come down, but you know, some levels of support to keep in mind to me are levels like 1780. Draw this in as demand, right? So you have some pretty big spots here to keep in mind. You have demand all over right here, demand there. So if price does poke its way down there, maybe there are some bigger buyers who may be interested. So keep an eye possibly on that. If you like gold to the long side, that would be my most notable area. And just for interest, we'll draw a fib from the low here that we made back in August when we had that big crash, right? We'll draw in the lows to the highs here, and you can see this kind of lines up. It's pretty close to that 38.2% retracement. So that offers another level of interest to the buyers, right? So if you were to get, you know, an entry somewhere around this zone, that sort of reasonably sets up something like this to me. So, you know, a buy with a stop loss somewhere underneath structure there. This is a bigger move, but if you're talking about a swing trade, that could be, you know, a nice move there on gold. So I do like that actually a lot. So I'm going to keep an eye on that with gold, but not rushing to do anything with gold. I think that I think there's better plays out there at this time. Like I mentioned, my interest with the Aussie, the NZD, and the CAD at this time. Let's see. Speaking of U.S. oil, so this is another thing I wanted to point out. So oil is catching a bid today, and the reason that matters is that the CAD, if you trade the CAD at all, the Canadian dollar has a high level of sort of correlation in some ways to the oil market, right? When oil is on the rise, usually that is perceived as also bullish for the CAD because of their economy being so heavily built around oil as well. Right. So if the oil prices are going up, that is usually viewed as good for the Canadian economy because of the demand for oil. Yeah. So definitely of interest to keep an eye on the oil market as well for me, as I am watching the CAD closely at this time. SPX 500, we'll take a quick look at the stock market, see what's going on today. We are seeing some sell-off. We're seeing a little bit of profit taking after this recent run up. We've seen some really incredible runs on the S&P 500. We saw a bit of a bid there earlier today. We'll see if that has any follow through. But again, with the stock market, I am bullish until proven wrong. The thing with this is that so many people will try and call tops when it comes to the stock market. They'll try and say, oh, this is the top, right? They'll play this game constantly when this thing historically goes up, and it tends to want to go up, right? So if it's going up and you know it's likely to continue going up, trying to short this thing is really, really quite dangerous. However, there are times in which shorting can make a lot of sense for some traders, right? For example, if you get a serious breakout and get a lot of fear coming into the market, that may be something of interest in the short term. But for me, that's something I kind of avoid. Same with gold. I usually am more interested on the long side for both of these markets due to the fact that over time, they tend to historically go up. So watching the S&P 500, a couple levels of interest. You've got support here down at 44.75 in case this thing comes for a deeper retracement. That would be, of course, a retracement of, let's say, roughly only 2%. But lately, this thing has been so bullish, so unstoppable. And it's not that it can't keep going. It totally could keep going. And I probably wouldn't short it either. That's the point. Like when markets do something like this, for me, there's only really a few options. If I'm long, I keep holding it. If I am, looking for longs, I wait for a deeper retracement, but I'm not looking to short at all. So just because, again, it's over time, it historically goes up, and you can look at this thing. Here's one of the greatest crashes in the last decade, and it looks small compared to the bullish runs. So for me, looking at the stock market, the bullish side of it is just generally more favorable, in my opinion. So, yes, thank you very much, Dade, for the reminder. If you guys are enjoying the streams, if you like these streams, do me a big favor and just hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. Definitely worth sticking around for more free content. We do this Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. US Eastern. Someone said Eurocad. I'm down to look at Eurocad. So Eurocad making a push to the upside overall. You can see that the euro strengthening pretty much recently. But we did have a similar situation on the Eurocad. We had a big blow off top here, right? You had this major run up to the upside, met with just as equal or maybe just slightly less strength to the downside. So this one, again, we have the monetary policy situation coming out in just over 30 minutes here. So we'll see if that causes any volatility for the CAD. Of course, going into the news, you've got some levels to consider. As we zoom into price a little bit, you can see we do have some support here, right? And then in terms of resistance, you've got the previous high, of course. And then not any major resistance until you get back up to the previous high. So I would say going into the big news here, if you see anything, if something comes out very hawkish or very dovish for the Canadian dollar, watch for a breakout to the downside or to the upside, right? So a lot of times people they'll ask me, Nick, which way is the news going to go? And the truth is, I don't know where the news is going to go. I wish I did. I would be the richest person on earth. But my goal with news is to sort of not necessarily predict which way it's going to go, but sort of react accordingly. If price is able to catch a breakout, then by all means, I will look to sort of react to that, and vice versa. If it is choppy and doesn't do anything, maybe I'll just move on. But again, for the Eurocad, you have scenarios to the bullish and to the bearish side that could be of interest if things get very, very volatile during the news, which is possible. Bank of Canada, I still remember one time I was looking at the USD Cad for a Bank of Canada meeting. And there was a big surprise. And in literally like 1 to 3 seconds, the USD CAD had moved up 105 pips in literally like 1 or 3 seconds. It was like, I was on like the 15-minute chart just watching the spike. And I remember looking at it and the whole screen just like flew up. It was crazy. So volatility certainly can come about from meetings like that. So if you're watching the Eurocad, there's a couple levels to keep an eye on. Just to put in perspective, 105 pips to the upside would be a move like that. That would be kind of crazy, right? Or to the downside, it would look like this. So again, we'll see if there's anything of interest today with that. We can take a look at things like Aussie Cad. Here's a currency pair that's two strong commodity currencies. So you've got the Aussie, of course, with the heavy impact in trade with China and things like that. But then you also have Aussie strengthening against the CAD while oil is strengthening. So it may be poised for some volatility. We've got this here trend line here to the upside. So we are seeing a little bit of congestion. If you're watching the Aussie CAD, right? You've got this situation where you've got bids to the upside. Can we get the breakout to the upside there? Or is this thing going to sort of fall out of favor and find some resistance? That's where we're going to have to watch for the break. So again, another scenario, breakouts to the upside, breakouts to the downside. Both scenarios could happen. We'll have to see what the Bank of Canada has to say, and then we will go from there. So what about GBP CAD while we're on the train there? So GBP CAD overall has been rising, but very, very choppy, very back and forth here is the pound Canadian. So as we come into the news, you can see it's been trading higher in the last few days. We'll see if that follows through. A couple levels of resistance. We can zoom in here a bit and look at like the 1 hour chart coming into the news. You've got pretty significant support here on the 1 hour chart at 1.174. And of course, resistance at the previous high depending on how you draw it. But to me, I like to draw the bodies mostly. So again, couple areas of interest. You've got this level here to the breakout to the upside and to the downside. So, and the reason I'm pointing these out is just because, like I said, I can't predict the future. I don't know what the Bank of Canada has to say with any, perfection, but I can make educated guesses, as well as I can sort of anticipate key levels should it break up or down, and how we may be able to react. Okay, so pound Canadian, Aussie Cad. And then also I do want to take a second just to look at some of the yen crosses against the pound, right? You've got the pound yen here coming down a little bit. So pound yen is another currency pair that we talked about yesterday. I believe Ivan was actually speaking about it on his stream. So pound yen, I do like to the upside, but I really need signs that it wants to actually go there, because we are seeing a nice little, some higher lows in this market. We're seeing some demand coming in, but again, I'd really like to see some form of a breakout and signs that buyers want to step back into this market before trying to get involved, just because we're very choppy, we're very back and forth. And I think that the market is sort of just waiting for a decision. It's waiting for something that is either really bullish or really bearish to get markets moving again. So we'll have to sit back and wait on that. Again, we do have CAD news in 30 minutes, which could be market impacting for people out there watching the CAD. And then, of course, 1 hour after that, the GBP will probably be on the move as well. Dave pointed out all the markets that I've looked at. So if you've missed any of them and you'd like to go back in time, just rewind the stream and you feel free to go take any amount of time on any of those that you would like. I've looked at the dollar, the euro, the pound, the Aussie, Kiwi, the CAD, gold, S&P, Eurocad, Aussie Cad, pound yen. So we've done a lot of charts today. So with that said, guys, I am going to wrap up the stream. Thank you very much for being here today. If you're new, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe button, so that you can come back again in the future. Thank you so much for being here, guys. And I hope to see you next time. If you're not already, like I said, subscribe so you can come back and hang out with us in the future. And we will see you back in the next one.
I know you were expecting Nick, but my name's Julie and I do the real work around here. I wanted to take a second to thank you guys for watching the show and tell you more about some free content that we offer. One of the things that we offer is a free email newsletter. So if you click the link down below, you can sign up for free market analysis, trading tips, and exclusive offers. Every once in a while, someone here at A1 Trading takes a crazy trade and you'll be the first one to know about it. See you guys next time.